Hello everyone, my name is Albert Berchtold, Executive Director of USPA. I'm here to talk to you today about some legislation that is unnecessary and potentially damaging to skydiving that is working its way through Congress. Part of the FAA Reauthorization Bill, which is making its way through Congress, is what we're going to talk about. More specifically, Section 315 of the Senate draft and the amendment offered by the representative in Hawaii to introduce the same language into the House draft. This language has been titled Air Tour and Sport Parachuting Safety. Part of this section has been directed towards the air tour industry. I'll reserve my comments on the parts focused on sport parachuting, since that's what matters most to us. To understand why and where this proposal and these efforts are coming from, we have to look back about 16 years. In 2008, the NTSB issued a special report which included a number of recommendations to the FAA. 3 of those recommendations were rejected by the FAA, and the FAA provided their justification for rejecting those recommendations. Fast forward to 2019, there was a horrible tragedy that occurred in our sport. A King Air crashed in Hawaii shortly after takeoff, which took the lives of 11. It was a horrible event. And everyone had wanted answers as to how such a tragic event occurred. Initial media reports suggested that an engine failure occurred. At the same time, Hawaii was suffering a number of accidents in the air tour industry, to include a few high-profile helicopter crashes. In an effort to respond to what was going on in the air tour industry, and likely in response to those initial media reports surrounding the skydiving aircraft crash, in 2020, Senator Schatz from Hawaii began working to introduce the Air Tour and Skydiving Safety Improvement Act. The sections of this act directed towards skydiving were the same 3 rejected FAA items from the 2008 special report, now being reintroduced 12 years later. We began engaging with the Senator's office to provide them with our expertise on the subject related to skydiving in their proposal. We provided updated data and facts surrounding skydiving-related aircraft crashes and fatalities. Now, 12 years after the initial FAA rejection, we were able to show that skydiving aircraft have now become safer than they were back then. Our safety record has improved. These proposals were rejected as a bad idea in 2008, and the data supports them even less now. We offered alternatives to the Senator which we believe would benefit skydiving aircraft safety. In 2021, the NTSB released their findings on the 2019 crash in Hawaii. They found the primary cause of the crash was pilot error, not engine failure because of maintenance. We thought that would change the direction of these efforts to push new maintenance requirements, but unfortunately we were wrong. In 2022, attempts were made to have this bill introduced into the National Defense Authorization and again the Omnibus Bill at the end of the year. We worked to educate the appropriate senators within the Transportation Committee and other key individuals as to how this language would harm the aviation and skydiving communities. We continued to share the data surrounding skydiving and our aircraft usage and show that no measurable safety would be gained from this bill. We engaged our group member drop zones, who joined the effort and provided letters to their representatives sharing their opposition to this bill. At the end of 2022, the language didn't make it into any new legislations. We were actually quite happy to see that one of USPA's recommendations to the Senator had made it into Omnibus Bill. That bill included $11.3 million for 110 new positions at the FAA to strengthen aviation safety and oversight. Part of our suggestions to the Senator's bill was that we didn't need more aircraft regulations, but rather the FAA needed more resources to enforce the existing regulations. And now we're here in 2023, and this language has appeared in the Senate draft of the FAA Reauthorization Bill. FAA reauthorization, which occurs every 5 years. Section 315, Part D of this 461-page document includes this language. This language does not currently appear in the House version of the FAA reauthorization. But Ms. Takudo from Hawaii has introduced an amendment in effort to bring this language to the House draft as well. So what does this language do? Well, in short, it creates an aviation rulemaking committee to look at the three items that were part of the 2008 special report mentioned earlier. The first part would require skydiving aircraft to comply with engine manufacturer recommendations, service bulletins, and time between overhauls, TBO, and life limits. This would essentially give manufacturers regulatory authority and remove the FAA from the regulatory role they currently fulfill when it comes to these items. The FAA has inspection criteria, and under Part 91, our aircraft are obligated to abide by those regulations. There is no measurable deficiency in those regulations. When followed, the existing FAA regulations are sufficient, and our safety record is a testament to that. Implementing these new suggestions would put many small businesses out of business. And for those who could afford this change, they would likely have to increase prices substantially, hindering economic growth, and increase jump prices for you. Part 2 and 3 are related to new initial and annual recurrent pilot training and testing programs. While the sections of this proposal all sound logical, they already exist in commercial pilot training on emergency and recovery procedures, weight and balance, egress procedures, and a few others. These proposals would create greater paperwork burden on the FAA while not truly adding any additional mark in the way of safety. We don't need more testing and training programs in this area, but as mentioned before, and granted in Omnibus, greater oversight and compliance with our existing regulations will benefit our sport. So how does this involve you? We need you to let your elected officials know you oppose this language and you want it removed from FAA reauthorization. Share your voice with your elected officials. They will listen. Committees on both sides of Congress are discussing and making decisions on this bill starting this week. The clock is ticking. We need your help, and we need it now. Please take 30 seconds to tell Congress that you oppose these regulations by clicking on the link in the description of this video. Give it a share, give it a like, give it a comment, and together let's make sure our voices are heard. Voices of skydivers. If you need additional information, please feel free to give us a call, or we have a section on our webpage which can provide you with more information, including the copies of the bill, our facts, analysis, and data on the subject, and ways to contact your representative. Blue skies.